Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Normal Blood Glucose podcast. Today, we have a special guest, Brian Sanders. He's the creator of the movie Food Lies and a lot of more businesses dealing with carnivore diet, and not only carnivore diet, but ancestral diet, which heals and help a lot of people around the world, and also me when I normalized my own blood glucose. And that's what I bring in you in this podcast. So, about some of the community members got some questions for me, and I would love to ask him also. And a lot of the stuff that he's doing, I have a lot of interest in, such as not only food, but cosmetics for people that care about their body and they eat only natural things, and carnivore and keto, and a lot of these communities that we here in my community we part of. So Brian, I would like to first to get, I'm sure you get it a lot, but some small introduction of yourself, what you do now. Like, I know you have a lot of businesses.
I just have my own health journey. I kind of just changed my diet almost 9 years ago now when I turned 30. And then a few years later, I decided to make a film. So I got really into it. My parents had some health problems. I actually lost both of them around that same time. And it like really woke me up, right? It changed my life. It made me think about health a lot more seriously. And so made a lot of changes. My diet, everything got better, right? Like I made simple changes. Like I just stopped eating processed foods, basically stopped eating refined grains and added sugars and vegetable oils, and just ate more meat. And all of a sudden, all my problems went away. I got fitter. I felt better. Everything was better. So then, a few years later, I decided I need to make a film because I saw all these vegan films, and I couldn't have all these vegan films just having the only word, right? It just seems like when you watch the mainstream, Netflix, whatever, it's all the health films are vegan or plant-based or whatever. So I just realized we needed something on the other side. And I've just been connected with a lot of great people over the years. Back in the days, John Baker, I remember he went on Joe Rogan in 2017 to talk about carnivore. It was like kind of the first time the world, the mainstream world, I guess, heard about carnivore. And I knew of Sean earlier, and we filmed the day before he went on Joe Rogan in 2017. So it's been almost 6 years making this film, and had a lot of great people in it that your community knows, I'm sure, or just a lot of these people leading the health space to get the proper nutrition information out there. And so my main thing is the film, but I also have my podcast called Peak Human. So I interview all these people on the podcast. I have a business called Nose to Tail. And along the way, I learned about the healthfulness of meat and how we can raise it better. And so I started this company, and we do regenerative practices, right? So we do all the grass-fed, grass-finished. We use holistic management, all the good things that helps the land, helps make the meat better, quality, more nutrients, just sort of wins all around. And then from that, you mentioned the cosmetic stuff. We have body care products that we make from beef tallow. And I think that's super important just as a high level, your skin is part of your body. It's an organ. Like, you don't want to put fake stuff on your skin. It absorbs into your body. You want to use natural stuff, like beef tallow. So I also have a business here. I'm in Austin, Texas, and I have a health club sort of community center thing as well. Just we're trying to get everyone together, under the same kind of like-minded values, exercise. We have a little gym. We cook together, we hang out, we work during the day. We have a sauna.
Yeah, I saw that you have the saunas right outside and all.
Yeah, it's just like we got a lot going on with that health stuff. And then we even have Chef Charlie that's really into the nose to tail cooking with using all the organs, using the whole animal. And so that's another thing we're doing is he's making food for people in the community here. And that's kind of like a recap of what I got going on.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. And I think I appreciate everything like that improves our bodies. And we can dive into that. Like, I think for my journey was that with my type 1 diabetes, I eventually I balanced it completely by these diet changes, and especially when I base my diet on meat and animal products. And that's a thing that I think is not really talked too much. You will agree with me, the skin, all the skin side of of our lifestyle, like the health of our skin. And that's what I loved when I saw that you make this product. That suddenly it occurred to me that okay, I cleaned all of my aspects of health, and then it's like naturally came to me, okay, so I shouldn't also put chemicals on my skin, you know. And then when I started like brushing my teeth without toothpaste and all, and then I came across your products, and it was like, wow, I think it's the it's the perfect match. And I wish I don't think we can get it in my country. You will correct me, but yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, maybe one day. I don't know. We're just trying to keep it to the U.S. now. It's pretty hard to ship overseas.
And the products, like if you use, like you have every kind of cosmetic, like even a shampoo, toothpaste, right?
No, not yet. Actually, I'm looking into shampoo. Well, that's a long, far off project. We have the soap and the skin food, which is like the moisturizing cream. We have a lip balm. We have now deodorant that's about to come out. So it's very natural. You know, you definitely don't want to put aluminum under your arm every day. So most of the deodorants are filled with aluminum. So yeah, it's just a beef tallow deodorant, and even hair product. So that's about to come out is the hair product with a little bit of beeswax with the beef tallow. So
nice.
Yeah, do pretty much everything except for shampoo and toothpaste. Although I like Redmond. If you know, Redmond is a U.S. company.
The salt?
Yeah, Redmond salt. So they do a toothpaste that uses clay. So that's a toothpaste I use. It's just clay,
nice.
And you know, it's very simple type of toothpaste.
Ah, nice. I didn't know. So they base it only on salt.
Well, the salt company. I don't think the toothpaste is based on clay. They have bentonite clay, which I think is something else that they, you know, it's part of the natural, ground, just natural, elements from the earth, and it helps just sort of clean your mouth.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we dived into cosmetics, but if we're already talking, so do you believe that, let's say a person, we will take an example of some imaginary person that he was doing everything right. He switched to some low carb diet, he disconnected from a lot of toxins in his diet. And you think that person can feel unwell only because of cosmetics, and maybe is not aware that this is like the X factor of his health?
I think it's possible because they might clear up a lot of things by doing all the stuff he talked about, but there's still lingering problems. Or I think some people are more sensitive than others. There's a book called Degeneration. I have a friend, Dr. Anthony J., great guy, and he wrote a whole book on this and about all the estrogenic compounds around us, which is like the plastics, and people know about BPA and stuff, but the phthalates and all this other stuff, the perfumes and scents and so many things in our environment, and including the products. And yes, so he has all kinds of stories, and I've learned about how many problems people have with that, and they don't know it, right? Because it's like, they're just putting on their skin every day. They have no idea, and it could be causing tons of problems. He talks about how it's lowering the testosterone of people and raising the estrogen, right? And so many things in our environment are toxic that you have to be careful, especially when you're putting them directly on your skin.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. As you said, it's the biggest organ in the body. So it makes sense that it will absorb the most of nutrients, even if it's like it's not like the mouth, it's not that sensitive, but it still absorbs, and some of that goes to the bloodstream, of course. But before we jumped a bit to cosmetics, because I think it sounds like a minor, but it can be big. But if like to get back to the start, I know that you worked a lot of years on your movie, and I know you promoted it really well, and I watched all of your lectures, in a low carb down under and on the other low carb conferences. And I know that it's really, regenerative agriculture. So it's that's where like kind of the science, let's say the low carb field of science is heading towards. But do you think for also again the health perspective of the individual, is it crucial that we get grass-fed cows that they are in the sun all day, grass-fed, grass-finished, or maybe in the countries that you can't get it, people can still reach to like optimal health with I don't know, with some normal industrial cows?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. A lot of people debate this in the community, right? I don't think everyone agrees on it. And my take, well, my company Knows the Tail does do the best practices and all the regenerative stuff. So people think that I say that you have to do it. I actually say that you don't have to do that. It's just the best, right? It's the best way to do it, and it'll give you the best nutrients and the best fatty acids and the best for the land, everything. But that doesn't mean you have to do it. And because I don't like this message that there's a lot of like fear mongering, right? They're like, oh, if it's a normal cow, it's going to make you sick. And, then people, what are they going to do? They're just going to eat bad foods instead because they're like, well, I can't afford the good stuff. So I guess I just have to eat the pasta and the bread and whatever else. So I know a lot of doctors. You mentioned, like low carb down under. I'm going to low carb Denver this year. I actually spoke a few years ago. A lot of these guys I talk to, they reverse diabetes. They do type 2 diabetes. They do all kinds of amazing things, reverse obesity with normal meat. They even have stories of Dr. Eric Westman does this a lot. He's in a very poor part of the country, and these people are on food stamps, which is, sort of a welfare system of when all they have is a very cheap food, and they do fine. They get better. Maybe you could get 90% better with just regular meat. So yeah, if you're not able to afford it, if you're in different countries, that you can't access it, that's fine. Do it anyway. And then later, as you go along in your journey, maybe as you kind of switch around your eating patterns or maybe your lifestyle even, where you can allocate more money to buying better meat eventually.
Yeah, I talk about it a lot also in my podcast and my posts, that as you said, sometimes people they may be afraid of that diet, but sometimes I feel like I saved a lot of money since I switched to the diet, even though when you look at my meals, it's like a lot of steaks, a lot of it's kind of like the luxury food sometimes I think in your culture and my culture also, but still I save money because I stopped with the processed food that is way more expensive and is way less nutritious. So you're not satiated when you're on a processed diet, processed. So I agree. But as you mentioned a bit diabetes and all, and this is merely the subject of this podcast and this community, that with my diabetes, I checked my blood glucose probably more than 10,000 of time I'm more than 20 years now with type 1 diabetes, and I wear the CGM all the time. And I was wondering about you. I know that many people in this community, they do maybe like kind of a NutriSense kind of trial, or I don't know, maybe you wore a CGM, or do you experiment with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably I've worn it maybe 5 times over the last couple of years. So 5 2-week periods I've worn it with different companies, NutriSense levels, stuff like that, and learned a lot. Yeah, I think it's super valuable. It's so cool to see that real-time feedback. I've done lots of different experiments and found that a lot of what I thought was true and what I read about, in the literature, and then what people talk about kind of online, does turn out to be true. That there's a huge difference in like the whole foods versus the processed foods. Like when we're talking about carbs, right? It's very obvious. If you just eat protein and fat, your blood sugar does not go up. It's, it is very stable, very level like that. But yeah, I just was looking at different things about the more processed the food is, the more processed the carbs are, the higher the blood sugar response. I was messing around with other techniques. I don't know if you get into these sort of nuances of like ways to make it have a lower blood sugar response. So if you were to eat some fruit, maybe it would rise a little bit, or, not like a crazy, like if you're just eat pure sugar, but you could do things like work out before or after, or take a walk, and do stuff like that. And it'll lower the response, because your body, can soak up and use that glucose. Or even the meal timing, right? Eating the carbs last if you're going to eat the carbs, or eating it with the fat and protein instead of just eating by yourself. Like, you never want to just eat carbs by themselves. That'll just give you like a really high spike. So I'm kind of interested in checking those things out with the CGM.
Yeah, that's a great advice. I know it's cool that you know it. Like I thought like only diabetics know these hacks, but it's cool that you're aware of that. Like many times I find myself I can eat fruits. Although I was starting my low carb journey with the Dr. Berenstein diet, like that. Mm-hmm. This is a quite restrictive, and then within time I saw like what you say, and I'm type 1 diabetic, that for me it's really like a very fine tuning. But still, like if I know that I go out for a walk now, even a walk can consider as a workout, like even a 20 minutes walk right after I eat. So I will not see a rise if I eat like a half of banana, for example, mm-hmm. with the meal, because of the walk that comes straight after. So yeah, and these small hacks, like it's true for everybody in some sort of like constellation, maybe some less carbs, some more carbs. But yeah, I agree with you that it's not the best to to restrict completely the carbs. And it kind of leads me to a question that we got here from the community, that now it's really common. People talk about it a lot here in the community in my country, in Israel. And I saw that also Paul Saladino, I know that you have connections with Paul, that is he talked about iron overload, and it's like we see it a lot, that the iron sometimes can go down, and ferritin goes up in the blood, and people, it's like kind of like a black hole of the low carb diet. People are not sure if it's like a iron toxicity, iron overload, or it can indicate maybe an inflammation. I was wondering if you saw it.
I haven't gotten into that much. I do know that about this in general, and that a lot of people are eating iron-containing food, like fortified foods. And I think there's a big difference in the iron that comes in real food compared to the fortified foods. And a lot of people don't understand, like breads or cereals or a lot of these things, they come with the bad form of iron, where your body can't absorb it. So I don't maybe go into the nuances as much as Paul, looking at a lot of blood work, but I do know there's the problems with the iron, and I think it's more from the processed foods, that they fortify it with the wrong form of iron.
Yeah, it's less bioavailable. It's completely different.
Yeah. So then there's a plant form. So there's kind of two things going on. There's the plant form of iron, which is not bioavailable and not good for you. I mean, that's why a lot of vegans are deficient in iron. And then there's also, it depends on how you define not bioavailable, but like the iron that they use to fortify is not what your body wants. It's basically like iron filings that, yes, it's not bio-usable to your body. It's not what you want. Yeah.
Yeah, it usually will the body will get rid of it, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, but so if we're going back to your movie, and that's kind of like this is where I think you explored the most. And do you think, I'm sure you've been asked it in some different variations, but do you think that regenerative agriculture is doable? Like it's a worldwide solution, because I will give you an example. I think we might agree that maybe the US or Australia or big continents, they can afford this kind of agriculture, but some more populated areas on this planet, like my country, and there is other countries in Europe that they are more like city driven. So do you think it's a possibility, and maybe the cities can get fed from regenerative agriculture, like even in a country that is populated, so maybe they can get the cows from the agriculture, but I don't know. How do you see it?
Yeah, that's a hard one, especially if you're talking about other specific countries. Like Israel might be like a very good example of there's not like tons of farmland, and maybe it is mostly city life, and that could be the hardest case. But I think in 95% of the case around the world, it is possible. And some people have run the numbers on how much land there is, and it is possible. The thing is, it's not going to just happen overnight. There's a lot going on that would have to change to like get to those systems. But another way to think about it is for all of history up until just the last 100 years, they were doing these methods. They didn't call it regenerative agriculture. It was just good agriculture. It was just natural agriculture where they did have cows, on grass in fields, and they didn't like move them around. I mean, if you're getting into like really good regenerative operations, they do have a system, and they move them from pen to pen, and it's like a whole process. But for all of history up until recently, it was done the correct way, and we did get by, right? But then maybe you would say, oh well, we have a higher population now, right? There's like 8 billion people in the world, stuff like that. So I mean, fair point, but I still think in 95% of the cases there is enough land. It's just misused, right? So like we're using the land for, say, monocropped corn, wheat, and soy, stuff like that, right? In the US and a lot of countries, they're just using it for the wrong thing, right? And they're Brazil, like they're using a lot of the rainforest is actually cut down for soybean production, for oil, for soybean oil. And then yes, maybe some of the cows do get some of that soybean, and there, there's more context to, the cows and on the land in Brazil, but just a lot of the issues I think are doing it with the monocropped agriculture, and people thinking or wanting to eat those foods because they're cheap, and a lot of times they're subsidized in the U.S., subsidized by our government and pushed, and so that whole system has to change, right? And we have to change the land use. But the point is, there's a lot of land out there. Again, maybe if you're talking about the 5%, Israel, certain countries, not a lot of land. Maybe you just have to like import it from, somewhere else that's not nearby. I mean, maybe we shouldn't import it across the whole world, but maybe, to support certain cities, it has to be done outside of the city. And it's just a little bit more of transportation miles, but I still think it's possible. So, yeah.
Yeah, you think amount-wise, like it's doable?
I think so. I mean, I'm not done the calculations, but I just know someone has, and I don't have the statistics in front of me, but there's a lot of land out there. If anyone's been in an airplane and looked down, you'll see a lot of land, and maybe not, it's not all suitable in certain parts of the world, but there are a lot of suitable parts of the world to raise animals.
Yeah, and it's true that we allow ourselves, like quote unquote, to be wasteful with monocropping industries. So that can change to regenerative agriculture, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, so as you say it, like I think I agree that it is possible, and also we know that most of the society still they will probably have some psychological problems. Some fear meat, some still listen to the vegans, and also it's not like we have to feed every human being on this planet with regenerative agriculture beef, because not all of them consume beef still.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be fine.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot more to the story, and if luckily, everyone isn't carnivore. Everyone doesn't have to be carnivore. I'm not carnivore. I eat maybe 85% of my diet from animal sources, but the other 15% by calories. I don't track calories, but I did the math once. I eat whole foods, right? And there's plenty of good whole foods out there that people can eat. and a lot of people prefer that. The problem is just the processed foods, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, like I said, not everyone has to be carnivore. I just think everyone should be avoiding those processed foods.
Yeah, true. And anyway, the meat industry today, like the big scale meat industry, they waste a lot of cows anyway. So it's like a game that no matter how we look at it, somehow we are being wasteful. Like,
Well, we're wasting a lot of food. Actually, there's statistics that I've looked up for the film about how much plant foods we waste, food waste in general, and it's actually mostly plants. 2/3 of
mhm.
food waste is the plant foods because people understand the value of animal foods and they don't waste them, right? It's more valuable, it costs more. And there's a lot of food waste that could feed the world. There's so much food waste. There's also environmental impacts of all that food waste. So it's another story. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And you said that you base your diet 85% on meat products, and the 15% left you try to make it like a low carb whole vegetables or fruits. You said.
Yeah, pretty much. I've gone back and forth over how low carb I go. I was pretty low carb for many years, and then I changed my metabolism. I got fat adapted. I got really healthy that way. And then I was like, what if I add some more whole food carbs back in? So for a couple of years now, I've been eating more like sweet potatoes, some fruit, stuff like that. And I have seen only benefits. I haven't seen any downsides. So that's really interesting for people. I mean, type 1 diabetics, different story probably. But I've had success personally because I'm active. And I think there's a lot of factors too, right? If you have a healthy metabolism, you're active. There's, mentioned Saladino. Yeah, he's a friend of mine. He's out in Costa Rica surfing all day, and he's eating, hundreds and hundreds of grams of carbs per day with fruit and honey and all that, and it's working for him. Great. I have no problem with that. I think that's perfectly healthy for his situation, and he is still healthy, and he is still strong and lean, right? And it's just like there's so much more context to it. So yeah, I think it is good to kind of have some more balance, like not be super restrictive for your whole life unless you need to be for a medical condition. But it's kind of freeing to be able to eat whole food carbs and enjoy some fruit and enjoy I like fermented vegetables, like sauerkraut or like pickles, like pickled vegetables or like stuff like that. Hey, it's great,
Yeah, pickles are great. They're a great solution. Like also a bit of carbs, and also it digested really well. I see it also on myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're. It's correct that it's like the cliche. Everyone should find what's good for them. Me, like as a type 1 diabetic, I know like for many years that I'm very insulin sensitive. It has nothing to do with type 1 diabetes. It's just my state, because I was a personal trainer for many years. I'm working out all of my life, so it's like my body is in a constant insulin sensitive state. So even as a type 1 diabetic, when I eat mostly meat, but I also experiment with some fruits, as I told you, like the half banana here and there, like when I know that I'm active, and I can sometimes it can be in completely flat line, like in the blood glucose, maybe like a rise to 115 or some, but not that much. So it really depends.
Yeah, that's great. That's cool.
Yeah, but you got some other like low carb foods, like people in these communities, sometimes many of them eat, for example, like 90% cacao chocolates, stuff like that.
Yes, absolutely. I do. Yeah, dark chocolate's a great one. Berries are a great one too, because they don't have many carbs. I think pretty stable blood sugar. I've done some tests. Yeah, like avocado, which I guess is a fruit technically, but I mean it's a classic low. Everyone knows that's a low carb side dish you can use. What else? Yeah, I don't eat a lot of nuts or seeds or like spinach. So I don't know if people have gone down the rabbit hole. Saladino has, and I have, over the years just learned more about anti-nutrients, which is a whole nother topic. But, I just don't think that eating certain, high anti-nutrient foods like consistently is very good.
Yeah, you mean like the anti-nutrients foods,
Yeah, like
containing
spinach
foods.
is a good example. It has a lot of oxalates. And so I don't think spinach is bad, right? Absolutely. Have a spinach salad, cook some spinach once in a while. Sure. Why not? Great. But I would make like a shake out of it, like a smoothie, you blend it and with almond milk and, some other things. Then I'm doing that every day for years at a time. And that's a lot of oxalates. And so people might know about kidney stones, and those are made from calcium oxalates. It's basically the calcium, it binds up all. If you eat too many oxalates too often, your body can't deal with them, and then it can end up in your kidneys as kidney stones, and it's very painful. It causes problems, and there's many problems that could come from that. So it's kind of just a lesson in seasonal eating, I think, and eating more ancestrally consistent. I'm very into ancestral health, right? Which just means looking to our past. And we didn't have access to fields and fields of spinach year round. It doesn't make any sense. We didn't have almond milk, which is a high oxalate food. So it makes sense that if you eat these in high amounts every single day, they can become a problem. If you eat it naturally, people have been gathering herbs and whatever leaves for a long time, and they were fine because they did it appropriately and seasonally.
Yeah, sure. And I saw you on some other talks and other podcasts that you mentioned Dr. Weston A. Price, and I read a book like Physical Degeneration and about the teeth and all, and I really like, that's the kind of science that I love, actually, that it looks on our past as humans, can like see evidence from modern times, although it's 100 years old, but that's like a real science in my eyes. That he also talks about like they consume milk that many times people in the carnivore community, like you mentioned, like Sean Baker and others, that they do only steak. So he was kind of balancing it. He just as you said, like it was ancestrally correct, like what did he saw. Yeah, ancestral appropriate.
And I love Weston A. Price. I think everyone should read that book. It's called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration.
Yeah,
and
nutrition and physical.
It's a huge part of our film. Actually, we have a section about it, and we talk about it. It comes up a lot because it's so important. It's all proven out too. Like you said, 100 years ago, he went around the world doing this research, and now it's all being proved out. That's the coolest part of it. It's not like, hey, some guy just like went and looked at some teeth 100 years ago. It's like, no, he kind of figured out so much stuff. He actually looked at these people in a very great, important window in history before they were gone. Like there wasn't a long. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Oh, the video cut out. This was a time in history before processed foods entered people's diets. Like this isn't really possible anymore. Pretty much everywhere in the world there is processed food, and so it was a unique time in history before processed foods came into certain places. He was able to visit these cultures all around the world, and he found they were super healthy, amazing teeth, amazing bone structure. Their jaws were wide. They could fit all their teeth. They didn't have dentists. They didn't have braces. They didn't have all that stuff, and they had amazing health and teeth. And really, the teeth are just a window into your health. And so what he found is these cultures didn't have processed foods, and when these processed foods, specifically the sugar, the grains, refined grains, and the seed oils, vegetable oil that came in, once they came into their diet, they lost their health rapidly, right? And so it's very clear that these were the foods causing the problems. And he also observed them eating all the parts of the animal, which is really cool too. Like you mentioned, Sean Baker, yeah, he's just eating the steaks. I mean, I don't think that's great long term. Weston Price found that these cultures, they were very different around the world. They were not connected, right? He was going to Africa. He was going to Australia, the islands in Melanesia. He was going to the Swiss Alps, going everywhere. these people had no contact with each other. They were doing the same things. They were eating the organ meats, right? They're eating the bone marrow, bone broth. They were eating the dairy, the grass-fed dairy. They ate the fat. They ate the seafood, right? They'd be eating the oysters and the entire animal. Like, this is all nose to tail eating. That's why I called my company Nose to Tail. But they knew that this was healthy. They learned over generations that this is how they produce healthy kids and healthy pregnant women and all this stuff. So they had all these traditions around pregnancy, especially. And humans are really smart, right? Before we even had all the science, they knew about the nutrient density. Really is what these are. The most nutrient dense foods, the best sources of nutrition were from the animal sources, and especially the organ meats and all the bits and pieces.
Yeah, that was amazing. When I discovered his work, it's kind of like was also a life changing for me. It was more like a connecting the dots kind of a moment. Like he was doing it. It was no like not like today that you have a lab. Laboratory science. It was like he just went over there with his wife, and it's like observational science. That's beautiful. And I know from my personal experience, it's only an anecdote. But when I was 13, I was getting my type 1 diabetes when I was 11, and when I was 13, so I had like a root canal, and it's really uncommon in that age, and it was developing really fast, because 1 month before that I had like I was at the doctor, at the dentist also, and it was sure that it developed really fast. And so back then no one knew exactly why did it happen and for such a young boy. But right now in like 6+ years I'm on a low carb diet, and I don't even go to the dentist. Just my teeth are in the best shape that they ever were, and you can say that it's anecdotal and all, but I feel it. I don't even go to clean my teeth like every 6 months or 1 month or 1 year, and I just see it on myself. And then when I read the book, it was like, wow, it was even more than that.
No, it makes sense. It's more than an anecdote. I mean, there's a lot of science behind it, and I mean, I had my own anecdotal story too. Before I tell the anecdotal story, there is science about it, and you read about it in Weston Price, and it's talking about the fat-soluble vitamins and how really tooth health starts with your diet. It's like basically, like I said, it's a window into, it's an indication of your overall health. And so it all is about what you eat. Like, I think people before thought like sugar just rots your teeth. That's actually not really how it works. It's not just sugar just sits on your teeth and like eats it away. That's not how it works. Sugar displaces good nutritious food. So people who are eating a lot of these 3 ingredients, sugar added, the refined grains and the seed oils, basically these things, he called them the displacement foods, and that they displace good nutrients. And so if you're getting poor nutrients in your diet, especially fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K, these are all from the animal foods, then your teeth basically give out first, right? They are not getting the nutrients they need, and they start going bad. So my anecdote is I had great teeth. I had no cavities growing up. I don't know if you call them cavities over there. No cavities. Growing up, I was fine. For my whole life, after I was like, say, 23, I was fine. I haven't been in the dentist in years. I don't do anything. But during my college years, 18 through, say, 23, I was eating the worst diet. Okay, so I should go back. I was brushing my teeth the same time, the same amount for all my life. It's not like I wasn't, it's always just, morning, night, whatever. I always done it. There was no difference. It wasn't like I was eating, like I've always eaten sugar, whatever. I eat some sugar at all times. But the only difference was during those college years, I was eating a whole bunch of those displacement foods. The classic poor college diet where you don't have enough money and you're eating the cheap processed foods. Yeah. So I ate the cheap processed foods. I wasn't getting enough animal foods, enough vitamins and minerals. And I had terrible teeth. I had cavities. All of a sudden, the only 4 or 5 years of my life that I had problems was during those years. So it just really shows that.
Yeah, it's similar to his to Dr. Weston Price findings that it's not it can be anecdotal, but when you see societies like that, and as you said, they don't do tooth cleaning or anything, like they don't clean their teeth. They might, maybe some of them, the tribes, like the African tribes, maybe they do some herbs, like they eat some herbs for the teeth, but they don't brush, like
Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. And do you think, if we talk about like carnivore diet, like we touched a bit, like on a pure carnivore diet, that it's only like a steak and salt, like like Dr. Peterson said, that he eat steak,
Yeah.
salt, and water. So do you think that it can lead to some deficiencies? And if to be more precise, like I saw it also on, it's another anecdote on myself, that I saw it sometimes like on my thyroid, that it got a bit affected from some kind of maybe a combination of overtraining and malnourishment,
Yeah. I don't agree with this pure carnivore diet with it. Yeah, just like kind of steak and salt. And Michaela Peterson, the daughter as well, and then Anthony Chafee, he's a friend of mine, and I know you had him on the show recently too. I had him on my show, but I didn't really agree with him. He's pretty convincing in the moment, but I mean, I've never agreed with that way of doing things. I think that humans have never done that. We've always sought after some sort of other foods in our diet, and throughout history, yeah, maybe we did, 6, 8, 9 months at a time, we could only get meat, and that's fine. But then for the other 3 months, we were getting other foods. There was berries around, there was tubers, there was leaves, you know what I mean? Like, we had other foods, and we always sought after them. And even the Inuit, these people up in the north, all different cultures, they work really hard to get some plant foods. They actually trade with other groups of people for plant foods during the winter. They will trade for like different like dried berries or different things, and they will even eat the stomach contents of animals that have plant matter in them. Basically, they go to, like, no culture has ever been purely carnivorous. I mean, theoretically, some people say, oh, during the Ice Age we were. Well, I mean, I love this research, and I think it's really interesting. And we referenced in the film too that we have evidence that humans were high trophic level carnivores, and you looked at the nitrogen isotopes in their teeth, and we can see these records. But that was just one group of people, and that doesn't mean they were purely carnivorous. That just means they were eating tons of animal foods. And even in the Ice Age, it's not like the entire world was covered in ice. A lot of people think it's like, oh man, the Ice Age, and they just picture like you're just in the Arctic Circle. It's like, no.
Yeah.
There's parts of the world that were not ice. Yes, a lot of humans were up north where it was super cold, but it was not just you're like living in Antarctica 24/7. Like, that's not how it was. There was plant foods around. We saved them. You can even save plant foods, right? You store them. You can store tubers. People do that all throughout history. You store foods for the winter. So on the other side to it is, I think you don't get these nutrient deficiencies right away. We like to kind of go against the vegan community because they think that they're doing well, and they're like, oh, well, I feel so great. And then a year later, they have all the problems. So I'm just a little bit worried that some of these carnivore guys down the road will have the problems. And Anthony Chafee, I mean, he's saying he's been doing it a long time and it feels fine, but there's more to it. I don't want to get too technical. There's a guy named Bruce Ames. He's a PhD that he really looks into this nutrient stuff, and he calls it the triage theory. And it's basically your body, even if it is deficient in things for a long time, it'll prioritize what the resources it has, or your stores, your nutrient stores, to give you the nutrients you need to survive. And so you can go many, many years with very, poor status of certain nutrients, and your body will still find a way, and it could even shut down other functions where, you're not being optimal. Like maybe some of your organs are not getting the nutrients they need, but your body will keep you alive by getting those nutrients, if you're not eating them, to the right places. So it's sort of a dangerous game, and we don't know, right? Like, I'm friends with these guys, like Sean Baker, good friend of mine. I try not to argue with him about some of this stuff.
And you don't get to it.
No, but it's like, I don't know what's going to happen in 5 years from now. I have no idea. He could be perfectly healthy, or maybe he doesn't know what's going on. Like, he seems perfectly healthy, but maybe he like loses all his hair, or maybe he has like, all these like small things that are happening, and it's because he's just not getting all the nutrients he needs.
Yeah, I like that approach, like what you said, but we know that the body it's the ultimate adaptation machine in nature. Like, if you give it less nutrients, it will survive, but things will eventually will pop out, like in some point probably. But it's similar to like diabetics, or maybe pre-diabetics, even, that they go many years with a slightly high blood sugar, but the body can adapt. It's like it do what it takes to survive in that moment, but then you will see it will have some effects like long term that it will not kill you now. That's many times in diet, and that's why it's hard to argue also with a vegan. Like, I saw that you had a vegan debate also, and that and with vegans you can say sometimes, okay, if you take supplementation, it's not a good diet for now, but still it's hard to debate about it. If someone will be deficient in 10 years from now, you will see it like that he's malnourished, and some experts can say it already, like with your eyes or with your dark circles and a lot of nuance. But many people, most of society, I think, will not notice now.
I know. That's why this nutrition stuff's so hard, and you can't argue. Sometimes you have to there's nothing you can do. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. Do your thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way. Okay, and I was wondering, like, do you see sun as a part of it? Like, Weston A. Price talking about and all, etc. So it's he was that's one of the biggest discoveries also, and as not to mention, all the clean lands and the clean soil and everything that these cultures had, and the complete the perfect raw milk that like the Swiss had and all. But he said that all of the people that he was looking at was being out in the sun.
Yeah, that's huge. And vitamin D. Yeah, he also studied the vitamin K2. He was actually the one that discovered vitamin K2, which is a cofactor with vitamin D that helps your body make the correct hormones and be healthy. So yeah, he was big on that vitamin D component, and I think that's huge. I think it's very huge. Vitamin D, there was a lot of COVID studies too about like how much people who are deficient in it had way worse times, more deaths, more hospitalizations, all that type of stuff. I'm into all that natural stuff. That goes along with the ancestral health stuff, right? It's like it's kind of just simple stuff. It's get your diet right? We're eating whole foods, we're eating animal foods, we're moving, right? We're doing some sort of exercise, whether it be walking, sprinting, moving some weights around, playing sports, anything like that. We got your son getting outdoors, right? Like getting vitamin D on your skin. Like, I don't wear much sunscreen. I mean, sometimes if I play beach volleyball, I would wear some like some good, like sort of non-toxic sunscreen on my face, so my face doesn't get burnt during the middle of the day. But I mean, humans walked around forever without getting skin cancer, right? We got sun all day and we get a tan, and a tan is basically just your body building up the resistance to the sun so that it doesn't burn, but you can still get the vitamin D, right? You build up the tan as you go through the spring so that you're protected in the summer, and you can still get all that sun while being protected. So yeah, now every year I make sure I get my sun throughout the year as much as I can, and especially in the spring to be ready for the summer months. And yeah, it's hugely important. Circadian rhythm, a lot of stuff going on, research now, like people like getting sun in their eyes in the morning, so much stuff, just even being outside, right? There's probably half of it could be just being outside, being in nature, there's a million things going on with that. And so, yeah, I was kind of going through the like ancestral principles or stuff that I believe in, like with the sapien, I call it, the sapien diet and lifestyle, which is doing the things I mentioned, the food, the movement, the sun, the outdoors, the sleep. Sleep is huge to me. I think sleep is one of the most important things ever. I am more consistent with my sleep than I am with my food. Actually, people think, I'm like some crazy person and like eat like, perfectly at all times. I don't, like if I'm out in a social situation, I'm healthy and I have a good relationship with food and I can eat something and I know it's not perfect, but I do fine. But with sleep, I never sacrifice that. I actually have gotten like 8 hours of sleep almost every night. Actually, last night I didn't get good sleep. I actually feel a little tired. I feel I'm not quite right, but I'm gonna figure out how to make up for that sleep immediately. Right, go to sleep extra early tonight, or if that happened before, I would take a nap. I just think it's so important. Brain health. I think a lot of people with Alzheimer's, there's sort of this correlation with people not getting enough sleep over their life. Yeah, I need to look into that more, but I think there is a big component of, well, it's kind of in the science of just replenishing and rejuvenating and repairing your brain while you're asleep, right? So it kind of makes even just logical sense that we're having these mental and brain problems, cognition problems as we age, because so many people are just going through their life, not getting enough sleep, not getting that repair. And then lastly, we have community, and I sort of throw in the bucket of everything else, like sort of stress management, community, sense of purpose, all that type of stuff. I think is super important. And I think that's what's going on with the blue zones. People probably know about the blue zones and these people who live really long. Well, you know what? Most of it, I think, is from that sense of purpose, community. Like they have these strong bonds. They are outside, they are moving, and they are eating whole foods, right? That's another thing. They none of them are vegan. I know the author of the book, The Blue Zones, tried to make it seem like they're very plant-based, but all of them ate meat. There's actually a bit of controversy there. He went to certain places when they were during Lent or something when they weren't eating meat temporarily. So it seemed like they weren't eating meat, but they actually ate animal foods year round. There's a lot more to that story, but I think that's a big part of human life and thriving is that community. And a lot of that is not great these days, right? People are isolated. People are on the internet. It's just not the same.
Yeah, you mapped it really, really well now, but I think you will agree with me that everything, of course, everything you just said is related to one another. And when you start depleting on your sun exposure or on your sleep, so the rest will go downhill also. And as you said, like the sun is related to the circadian rhythm, and the circadian rhythm is important to sleep. So there can be like a vicious cycle if you start to be malnourished in any of these. So you will get the others will go down.
Oh, exactly. It's huge. It's huge. That's why. It's also, you don't have to do everything perfectly, but it's like people just, if you get on this path, you kind of wake up to the fact that our modern life is kind of going against all these five. I just kind of broke them up into 5 categories. It's like these are the 5 like ancestral health principles. Everything in modern life is kind of going against those, right? They're bad in every way. And so as long as people start waking up to that and then start trying to like fix each of them, that you can get a lot. You can make a lot of progress, and they will in the same way you said, if it starts breaking down, they all kind of break down. But if you start doing some of them, then you can get a lot of momentum to keep you going in all those aspects, right? You start making healthier decisions with what you eat, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna go for a sprint, I'm gonna go do a workout because I feel so good. So it can compound in that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you will probably agree with me that I have a feeling that the world today is going towards, like, the big how to call it, like the big pharma and the big powers, they pushing us towards a world that is more and more deplete of these things. And maybe in the future there will be like like in the Matrix movie, there will be like the small groups like what you are doing and some other influencing figures they will do, and then it will be like tribes, I don't know, against these more and more isolated communities that only talk only through the screen, like without even seeing each other, like like the metaverse and all.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think it's kind of happening already. We're kind of splitting up into different societies. And I see it here. Yeah, I think that maybe 5 to 10 more years, it's going to be really stark difference. Like you're just going to see people that are just very overweight and they can't, barely make it up the stairs. And then there's going to be another group of people that are walking around and fit and, really healthy.
Yeah, laughing around the fireplace, the fire
Yeah, exactly.
outside. Yeah, I wish. Amen for that. Yeah, so we are reaching the end. So just I enjoyed this conversation a lot, and I would like just for the ending for our listeners, maybe you can map like all of your businesses, like in general, like we talked about nose to tail, and you have also the community that you're building and you built and you're still building, but where else can you be found?
Yeah. Food Lies. So that's the name of the documentary series. So it's still not done. It's been a long journey, but I put out a lot of different content along the way, like the Peak Human podcast. And I have the YouTube channel. So yeah, just go to Instagram. I think it's kind of my main place where you just search for Food Lies and you'll find me there. You go on the YouTube Food Lies. And those are the most, worldwide things you can do. The other stuff is more local here in the US or in Texas with my community center. But hopefully that will grow. I have this idea to grow the Sapien Center into lots of different hubs, right? Around the world even. It could be, it's just like you're saying that there these communities of people that are rejecting the normal systems. And I think we can go worldwide and collect these people. And it sounds like you have a little group over there that you're collecting these people. And yeah, we just need to do that and connect more in person. So hopefully
we should do it. And actually you mentioned that you will be in low carb Denver, and I had this year I almost like I had to go, but eventually unfortunately I couldn't because of my schedule. But actually I was talking with the organizers, but maybe next low carb Denver we can meet face to face and talk about all of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so Brian, it was great having you. Hope to talk with you again.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.